Mars, Earth's neighboring planet, is widely accepted as the easiest for humans to colonize. But the surface of Mars is a frigid, inhospitable desert devoid of oxygen. With our current technology, it might take centuries to make it more livable. However, Elon Musk has suggested a shortcut. Just nuke it.
The fast way is drop thermonuclear weapons over the poles.
You're a supervillain.
As insane as that sounds, his theory actually has some scientific merit. So should we aim our nuclear weapons at Mars and start firing away? We discuss the merits and the issues with Elon's idea and explore if it might just be crazy enough to work. Coming up on Stranger Than Fiction. For a long time, Mars has been the poster child for the idea of expanding human civilization beyond Earth. And there's good reason for that. The red planet is like Earth in several ways. Not only is Mars a rocky planet, but it also has very similar geological features to our home, consisting of huge volcanoes, large canyons, and sprawling valleys. A day in Mars also lasts roughly about 24 hours, while its axial tilt is almost exactly the same as Earth's, thus putting both planets on a very similar schedule for seasonal changes. Even the gravitational pull is not widely different, with Mars exerting 40% of the gravity we experience on Earth. All these factors, combined with the fact that it is right next door to our planet, makes it the obvious candidate for humans to colonize next. However, before you pack your bags to board the next spaceship to Mars, you might want to know that the similarities between the two planets end there. Mars's atmospheric composition, atmospheric pressure, and temperatures are wildly different to Earth. While Earth's atmosphere consists of 21% oxygen, Mars's atmosphere consists of 95% carbon dioxide, 2.6% nitrogen, and a negligible amount of oxygen. So the first issue is that you would not be able to breathe on Mars, which, unless you are David Blaine, is kind of a big problem if you want to live there. Even more starkly, Mars's atmospheric pressure is just 1% of what it is on Earth, while the planet's average temperature stands at a freezing -85°F or -65°C, which is why water cannot exist in liquid form on Mars. So you're probably wondering why the hell anyone thought it would be a good idea to colonize a frigid, unbreathable desert with a razor-thin atmosphere that lies 140 million miles away. Believe it or not, Mars was not always this way. Over recent years, we have gathered incredible evidence that once upon a time, Mars was a proverbial Garden of Eden, with vast oceans, fertile plains, and a much thicker atmosphere. In fact, some scientists think that a few billion years ago, this planet had more water in proportion to its mass than the Earth did. How do we know this? Because in the upper atmosphere of Mars, we have found evidence of molecular hydrogen, H2, which can be formed from the breakup of water, H2O. Even more staggeringly, NASA's Curiosity rover has found rocks on Mars that are unusually rich in manganese oxide. The only known ways to produce manganese oxide involve either abundant oxygen or microbial life. That raises the unbelievable possibility that Mars might have been teeming with life a few billion years ago. As the Martian atmosphere started thinning around 3 billion years ago, all the water evaporated, leaving the frozen desert world that we see today. However, what if I told you that Mars still has an abundance of water? Yes, you heard that right. We now know that in both its north and south pole, Mars still contains permanent polar ice caps, made up of both water ice and dry ice, which is basically frozen carbon dioxide. It is the existence of these polar ice caps that gives many hope that we can terraform Mars, which is just a fancy word for using artificial means to make it more suitable for life. If we can somehow find a way to release the carbon dioxide trapped in Mars's poles, we could warm up the planet and increase its atmospheric pressure. However, given our current technology, accomplishing this is almost an impossible task, and many feel that it will take several generations before we can even consider it. But Elon Musk thinks that humans might have a secret weapon on their hands to get this done. And he literally means a weapon. He is talking about the world's nuclear arsenal. Musk suggests that if we can explode nuclear weapons just a few kilometers above the poles of Mars and create what he calls tiny suns, That could warm the planet and release the frozen carbon dioxide. CO2 is a potent greenhouse gas, meaning it absorbs and traps heat. The more of the gas that's in the atmosphere, the warmer the surface of Mars becomes, and this could soon cause a runaway greenhouse effect, thickening the atmosphere and causing more and more heat to be trapped. If this sounds familiar, that is because this greenhouse effect is exactly what we are trying to fight on Earth. The global warming that we are trying to prevent in this planet is exactly what we want to accomplish in Mars to terraform it. Elon was certainly not the first one to suggest nuking the planet, with many scientists believing that this outlandish plan might be our best bet to accelerate the terraforming process. However, while this plan might sound ingenious, the problem is that we do not know for sure if it will work. Some estimate that even if we mine Mars's entire surface for carbon dioxide, the atmospheric pressure would still only be about 10 to 14% of Earth's. This would correspond to an average temperature rise of about 10 degrees Celsius, which is not nearly enough to sustain liquid water. There is another big problem with this plan. We would need a shit ton of nukes. According to some calculations, to produce the required amount of energy to melt the polar ice caps, we would need to detonate 3,500 nuclear warheads every single day for about 7 weeks. That means that we might have to fire a whopping 171,500 nuclear warheads in total, which is more than 14 times Earth's combined nuclear arsenal. Even putting aside the geopolitical complications of manufacturing that many nuclear warheads and the economic and technological challenges of taking such a huge payload all the way to Mars, detonating that many warheads might have a devastating impact on the planet. It might turn the surface of Mars into a radioactive wasteland for decades or perhaps even centuries, thereby prohibiting further study of the planet due to contamination. There is also potentially another major problem with this plan. If we explode that many nuclear warheads on Mars, it will fling so much rock and debris into the atmosphere that it could block out the sun's rays and create what is known as a nuclear winter. This would achieve the exact opposite of what we intend, making the planet much colder. So while some think that the idea of detonating a few nukes above Mars's poles might be worth trying, using a heavy payload would be a major risk as it might set back our efforts to terraform the planet. However, there is one other way we could get the same outcome of melting Mars's polar ice without using any nukes, by using asteroids or comets. Some scientists have suggested the spectacular idea of deflecting comets and making them crash on the poles of Mars. Believe it or not, we actually have the technology to deflect comets right now, and if we do find one that is headed for Earth, it might be worth nudging it gently so that it changes course and heads for Mars. Not only can a single comet or an asteroid release thousands of times the energy that a nuke can, thus vaporizing material and releasing the trapped CO2, but this plan could also have one other benefit. Comets and icy asteroids have large amounts of liquid water, which could be deposited on the surface of Mars. In fact, quite astoundingly, many scientists believe that this is exactly how Earth got its own oceans, with a series of comets and asteroids bringing large quantities of water to our planet billions of years ago. So the shortcut to terraforming Mars may not lie in Earth's military bases as Elon suggested, but could actually be found in the asteroid belt, which is situated between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. Other engineering proposals have also been put forward to terraform Mars, including the idea of creating huge space mirrors near the poles to reflect vast amounts of additional sunlight onto the planet. This might sound like an outlandish plot of a sci-fi film, but believe it or not, NASA has actually studied this possibility. They have even proposed using 300 reflective balloons, each one 150 meters across, to create a 1.5 kilometer wide mirror in orbit around Mars. The reality is that all these ideas have major shortcomings, whether it be the cost, the engineering complications, or the potential negative consequences. While nuking Mars might not be a great idea for now, Elon is certainly right about one thing. The faster we colonize Mars, the better. The human story runs the risk of having an abrupt ending if we do not become an interplanetary species. One only needs to look at the history of our planet to realize that extinction events are much more common than we realize. Just because things have been going smoothly for a few million years does not mean that they could not take a sudden turn for the worse. Just ask the dinosaurs, who were at the top of the food chain for many hundreds of millions of years until they suddenly saw a flash of light in the sky one morning, and their story was over. Consciousness is the most valuable thing in the universe, as if there were no conscious beings. There would be no one to even comprehend the beauty of the cosmos. Our little pale blue dot in the corner of the Milky Way is the only one we know of that has conscious and sentient beings. As Carl Sagan pointed out, this mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam is home to everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of. It is home to all the great civilizations to have risen and fallen, all religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every king and peasant, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor, and explorer, every hero and every villain. There is a very real risk that the human story could end abruptly, and even worse, that no one ever finds out that this astounding story happened, that all our art, literature, and the beauty we conceived and created vanishes without a trace. So one can argue that colonizing Mars, or perhaps another celestial body, should be near the top of our priorities as a species. Given the collective intelligence, enterprise, determination, and spirit that humans have, there is no doubt that we could accomplish this goal much quicker if we set our minds to it, because the stakes could not be any higher. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. And if you want to learn more about such unique places and concepts, subscribe to the channel. We will continue bringing you stories and ideas that blow your mind, as the truth, as they say, is stranger than fiction.